Okay, what is the Tennessee Disability Coalition and just how did it get started? Why don't you introduce yourself first?
Sure. Thank you for having me. My name is Tom Jedlowski. I'm the Director of Communications and Technology here at the Tennessee Disability Coalition. We are a nonprofit, nonpartisan alliance of about 40 plus member organizations and individual members. In short, what that means is usually more diagnosis specific nonprofits join the coalition, and then we're able to sort of pool our resources and our feedback from the ground to develop public policy that's sort of good for everybody with a disability, regardless of that specific diagnosis. So, you know, a right to repair act is something that we're working on this legislative session that gives people an ability to require, to fix their wheelchair without a prior authorization for like a power wheelchair and some durable medical equipment. So regardless of diagnosis, that's just an example, be it MS, ALS, whatever reason you're using your assistive device for, we're trying to pass legislation that would impact everyone who uses a power chair, regardless of their diagnosis. So, in doing our modeling that way and our advocacy that way, we've been very, very successful. We've been around for about 30 years and was developed by our current executive director, Carol Westlake, who saw a need and a lot of good advocacy that was happening, but none of it was sort of singularly focused on disability issues broadly. They tended to be more diagnosis specific, and that can sort of limit impact when it comes to state legislatures. So we work with our various partners to bring different legislation to the table. And we even have a lobbying firm that we engage with that helps us get that legislation through the Tennessee General Assembly.
No, that's cool. So like, if I could just get into like the services that you guys provide at the Tennessee Disability Coalition, like what sorts of services do you provide, and like, how do you make sure that people with disabilities, are independent and self-sufficient as possible? It's a two-part question.
Yeah, sure. It's a good one. First and foremost, what we try to do is develop and support advocacy, be that at the individual level or the organizational level. We help empower folks to lift their voices and tell their stories because we know how important that is when it comes to actually passing meaningful legislation. So we try to educate. Let me back up. Fun fact: about 1.6 million people in Tennessee meet the CDC's benchmark of what it means to have a disability. So a lot of our work is spent trying to educate people about the inherent diversity of disability, and that we are not a monolith. There are all different kinds of disabilities, all different kinds of political stripes within the disability community. Our issues are not partisan; they're just people issues, and we continue to craft our services and the things that we do aligned with that mission. So, as far as direct service goes, we as an organization, operate several grants from various funders that have direct services. For example, we have a program called Workable TN, which is a program for individuals who may be receiving, Social Security or other sorts of government benefits that may actually want to work and get a bit extra money, but don't want to lose those benefits. So we help guide them through that decision-making process in ways that make sense for the individual. The individual is in the driver's seat. We're just there to help guide and inform whatever decisions it is that they want to make. If they want to work a certain amount of hours, then we can explain to them how and if that would impact their benefits and help them make the best decision possible. Another program that we that we do is a program called Family Voices of Tennessee, which is actually the state footprint of a larger organization that is, you think of it as like a family mentoring program. So if you are a parent of a child with a disability suddenly interacting with a system that's very, very complicated, we'll try to pair you up with another parent of a child with a similar disability so that, you know, you can work together and help one another through that process, especially if you're a new parent or a first-time parent who's never, you know, interacted with the system, so to speak. You know, it can be very, very overwhelming for folks, and we want to make sure that they're empowered and understand how they can make the best decisions for themselves and their children.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. So like if I could move on to like some of the stakeholders that you know that your organization partners with closely, you know, like who are like the main key players involved? Um, yeah.
Sure. I mean, it's a great question. I would say first and foremost, our partners are our members, right? So, you know, the Arc of Tennessee comes to mind, the MS Society. You know, we lean on those folks, and they lean on us. You know, sometimes they'll have a great program or something that they want to get, you know, ushered through the General Assembly. We can help guide them through that decision. But then when, you know, when we need advocacy and voices around an issue that we're pushing, we can then lean on our members too to help share the stories from the ground, so to speak, you know, that they're experiencing to help bring that issue to life. We also do work really, really closely with state agencies and state contractors to, you know, both guide them and inform the policies, but also hold them accountable. You know, if there's a, you know, a deficit in what a program was intended to be doing versus a reality that we're hearing on the ground.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. My next question here is what impact does your organization have on communities as a whole?
Goodness, that's a tough one. You got the hard hitters today. We have a lot, you know, but it's hard. We typically don't, you know, we're not very good about bragging on ourselves as an organization. We really pride ourselves in getting systems level change done, you know, so where, you know, laws meet the road and that kind of stuff. So I would say that, you know, that's why we take this approach of disability being, you know, a human issue that is beyond party politics, you know, so that we can pass laws that impact and benefit the disability community broadly. So I would say that from, you know, a program that grants a pathway to Medicaid for children with profound functional limitations whose parents make too much to qualify for Medicaid. You know, we passed that a few years ago in the legislature, down to certain protections for individuals from state agencies. It's really hard to say, like, you know, there's a lot of information and a lot of policy that we've had a hand in. And I would encourage your listeners to go to our website, tndisability.org, both to better understand us as well as some of our accomplishments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I will make sure to link that in the description after this. My final question here is, you know, like how do you create an inclusive and welcoming environment for people with disabilities? How does your organization like do that?
Well, by the nature of our name, right, we have to be mindful of accommodations, you know, that are needed, and we do not put out any invitation or any, you know, sort of consumable information that's not available in various formats. So if we, you know, have it in an email, we make sure that we accompany like a text only, you know, document along with it for people who are more comfortable with that format with their screen readers. To when we host an event, we make sure, you know, to normalize accommodations by saying what accommodations can we provide, you know, not for are you deaf or are you blind or have low vision. You know, we don't ask like diagnosis specifics. We simply let the individual tell us what they need, and by, you know, having accessibility as a blanket field, or accommodations rather, as a blanket field when registering for one of our events. I'd like to think that by proxy of that, it normalizes accommodations. I've been on some calls with major tech corporations that did not provide or simply ask for accommodations, as if, someone with, who's deaf or hard of hearing could not possibly, have achieved a level of professional accomplishment that would necessitate them understanding what's being spoken on that webinar. And I held them to the carpet about it afterwards and said, look, I know this may be really hard for you to believe, but people with disabilities aspire to all levels of career advancement. And the fact that you would not just offer simple captioning in this webinar that was really, really important for users as well, was off-putting, and I made sure that they were aware of it. And when I did my, post-event questionnaire, we've got to be more mindful of accommodations broadly, that it's not just for some super nuanced group of individuals. These are, it's as ubiquitous as humanity itself. So the more that we can kind of beat the drum for these for accommodations and to normalize them, I think the better off that we will be. And those are just examples of things that we go out of our way to try and do. We're also trying to build a compendium of information that people can lean to for creating more accessible websites. And that, from a place where it's not just this place of not wanting to get sued, I don't think that that's a good place to work from. I think that working from a place of being more inclusive and realizing that there is strength and diversity is far more important than worrying about getting sued. And I've told our tech vendors that we work with on this too, that I do not want to create a narrative about just avoiding a lawsuit. It should be bigger than that, and it should be more organic and meaningful than just not getting sued.
Yeah, those are some important points there. Yeah,